Good morning. Thank you for joining us live here on India Today's social media handles. I'm Akshita Nandagopal, back this Tuesday morning, as always, to get you a roundup of all the top stories that we're tracking and that you need to know about starting off your day. The unfortunate news that came in last evening was of the sudden demise of one of the most renowned seers in the country, Mahant Narendra Giri. And the reason it's really shocked the entire nation is the circumstances of his death. It looks like it's a case of death by suicide because his body was found hanging. Even a suicide note has been recovered. But it's very, very murky how things stand right now. The investigation is still underway. So everything I say is as things stand right now, as per the investigation as of now. An FIR has been filed at this point, in which several of Narendra Giri's disciples have been named as accused in a case of abetment to suicide, and that's because they were named in his suicide note. Let me just round up for you exactly what happened. Now, it's his disciples who found his body in his mutt, which is based in Prayagraj in Uttar Pradesh. His body was found hanging. After that, they called the police. The police came in, conducted an investigation where they also found this suicide note. Now, in this suicide note, it's been mentioned that the reason Mahant Narendra Giri took this extreme step was because he was being harassed. He says that he was being mentally harassed by some of his disciples, where he's named one of his top disciples, Anand Giri, as well as two others. And I'll just tell you their names as well. Both of them also are seers who were in fact followers of Narendra Giri, Agha Tiwari and Sandeep Tiwari. Three of them have been named in the suicide note. All of them have been detained now by the Uttar Pradesh police. Now, why it gets murky here is because Anand Giri, the disciple who's been named by Narendra Giri in that suicide note, has claimed that this is a conspiracy, that the Mahant was actually murdered, and he's named two others, the guard as well as a very close aide of Narendra Giri. This is something that's being investigated by the police, but right now they've detained all the three named in the suicide note of Narendra Giri. Anand Giri is a very high profile disciple of the Prayagraj mutt, and he is someone who had a falling out with Narendra Giri earlier over some financial irregularities. He was reportedly forgiven. There was some sort of a reconciliation, but clearly that wasn't the case. Things clearly didn't get okay between the two, and apparently, according to the FIR, the details of which we have, Mahant Narendra Giri time and again spoke about how he is being troubled by Anand Giri and how Anand Giri was simply not listening to him. So this is a case at this point that's being investigated by the Uttar Pradesh police. UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, the SP Chief Akhilesh Yadav, all of them are going to be visiting Prayagraj today to pay their last respects to a very, very renowned seer. A lot of statements that have come in so far, reactions essentially of shock, of disbelief that something like this has happened. Even for us, it came as a huge jolt, because just a day before this happened, our team was in fact meeting with this seer. Rahul Kaval had spoken to him in great detail. You can catch that conversation here on India Today as well. It's up on our social media sites, so you can catch that conversation in which he was talking about his vision for Uttar Pradesh, about development for the state, etc. So it definitely came as a huge shock for everyone, and that's why you've got several political parties also, election season, keep in mind, they are demanding that there be a detailed investigation. They're saying hand over the probe to the Central Bureau of Investigation, to the CBI. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But this is something that we are tracking very, very closely here on India Today. Every aspect of the investigation we'll keep you updated on. Now, another story that's been very concerning, and we've seen a lot of discussion on social media over, very worrying for you and me because it affects us directly. It's on travel to the United Kingdom, to the United States amid this pandemic. Number of restrictions that have been in place for the last many, many months. A number of countries have been easing them out. So new travel policies have been coming in place. I want to touch upon the United Kingdom first, because there's a huge controversy that's playing out over how UK has put these norms for India. Fully vaccinated Indians will have to still undergo quarantine in the United Kingdom. Why? Because the vaccines haven't been approved. And this has led to a huge uproar. The irony is that we are in fact being administered two vaccines. Of course, Covishield, Covaxin, you've got others that have come in now. Covishield is a vaccine that was developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University in the United Kingdom, and yet no approval has been given by the United Kingdom for this vaccine. It's led to a lot of uproar, a lot of people questioning why the United Kingdom hasn't exempted fully vaccinated Indians from quarantine. For a number of countries, they've done it. For India and select few others, they even haven't approved Covishield right now. And this hypocrisy on the part of the United Kingdom has led to a lot of outrage, with many saying that action must be taken. It should be, reciprocated by India, that we should say that anyone coming from the United Kingdom must ensure that they are also quarantined for the full period. At this point, of course, UK has said that, look, we are in talks with India, we're having a detailed dialogue, and we're looking to resolve this at the earliest. A number of leaders here in India have also slammed the United Kingdom. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor has boycotted UK events, saying very clearly that this is his form of protest against what's happened, against the United Kingdom refusing to exempt fully vaccinated Indians from the 10-day quarantine period. He's spoken to us here in India Today, so you can catch that conversation here as well. Jairam Ramesh is another leader who strongly objected to how the United Kingdom has really come up with this policy where they're refusing to exempt Indians. Very unfair, really, what the UK has done. The government also at this point is in all likelihood going to be raising this at the highest diplomatic levels to ensure this is addressed at the earliest. We saw this controversy playing out of the European Union as well. That sort of got resolved because many countries on their own went ahead and gave the nod for Covishield vaccinated people. So in that sense, Indians could travel to some of these places. I also mentioned that the US is going to have a new travel policy. What is that? So from November, you're going to be seeing this new travel policy where they're saying that fully vaccinated people from all countries can visit the United States. Of course, they're yet to firm up the policy. So much like every other country, they'll have a list of approved vaccines. If you've been vaccinated with that jab, then you can make your way to the United States. You can travel with no hassles. That list is yet to come out. CDC is working on that. So we'll keep you, up to speed on that as well, on which vaccines have been approved and what kind of an impact it has on us. So that's another story that we're tracking closely here on India Today. Besides that, what's the other top story of the day? Yesterday, you had a new Punjab Chief Minister taking oath, Charanjit Singh Channi. And amid that, there was a lot of uproar, a lot of controversy, because you had Congress leaders on the side speaking out against Harish Rawat, saying that the Punjab polls will be fought under the leadership of Navjot Singh Sidhu. Today, Harish Rawat has put out a number of tweets where he's actually defended Sidhu for hugging the Pakistan Army chief. Remember that massive controversy that played out during the inauguration of the Kartarpur corridor, where Sidhu was seen being very, very pally with the Pakistan Army chief, and then there was that hug which Captain Amrinder Singh also very clearly had condemned and said that this is an anti-national act. Now, days after Captain Amrinder Singh went on an all-out tirade after resigning, saying very clearly that Sidhu is too in touch with Pakistan, too mingled with Pakistan, and is anti-national, Harish Rawat has defended Sidhu. Believe it or not, he's justified what Sidhu has done, comparing it to Prime Minister Modi hugging Nawaz Sharif and saying that Sidhu before being in the Congress, was in the BJP, and that time the Bharatiya Janata Party had no problem whatsoever with Sidhu's friendship with Imran Khan. So there's a massive controversy brewing over that. Expect that, the BJP will pick this up and question the Congress as well. So Harish Rawat has chosen completely to defend Sidhu. Essentially gives you a sense of really how the High Command is choosing to completely back Sidhu at the moment. But the reason that you have this entire controversy is, of course, because of Pakistan and their role in terror. A few days back, we reported how New Zealand has pulled out of a series with Pakistan because of the fact that it's unsafe. And, you had a lot of reactions coming in from Pakistan claiming that it's unfair on the part of New Zealand to do that. They're not the only country now. You've got England also choosing to pull out of a test of a series with Pakistan, saying again the same issue, that they're not going to be a part of the Pakistan tour because of the security scare that the New Zealand team had in fact faced, and a security scare that the New Zealand government was worried about for the cricket team. England also has called this off, and this means big trouble really for Pakistan cricket, because every country now is saying that, look, your land is not safe, we're not going to play cricket with you at this point. England, their men and women's teams were supposed to be next month in Pakistan for a tour. That's now been called off because of the same issue of security. So Pakistan, there's a lot of pressure on them internationally now to get their act together, because you're seeing repercussions that they face in different circumstances. The latest being in cricket. For Pakistan cricket, this comes as a huge blow. New Zealand pulling out, England now pulling out. Pakistan in denial is saying that they're making excuses, but the reality is that it's them who's suffering the price of terror. They're paying the price for harboring terror in their backyard. England, after New Zealand, has now called off their tour. So those are some of the top stories that we're tracking this morning here on India Today. All the details of the stories I mentioned, much more, up on our website, on our social media handles. You can also join us live on India Today TV. That's it from